U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis heads to the Middle East and East Africa to discuss the war against extremism. The high-tech solution to reducing fear of scary healthcare experiences. And an entrepreneur taps into the multi-trillion-dollar halal market with a line of men's grooming products. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is crisscrossing the Middle East and the Horn of Africa at a time when the United States is considering changes to its role in regional security. Among the countries he will visit, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Israel, Qatar, and Djibouti. VOA Pentagon Correspondent Calabab reports.
U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is visiting the Middle East this week, where leaders are eager to size up the new American administration's approach to their regional rival, Iran.
And in fact, when I was in Saudi Arabia in February, their top leaders said that they were relieved that the Obama administration was no longer in power, in part because they felt like President Obama was too soft on Iran.
The Trump administration could become more involved in the crisis in Yemen, often viewed as a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. U.S. officials have signaled the president wants to further strengthen strategic relations with Saudi Arabia, which has been supporting the fight against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. Mattis will also discuss how regional allies can help stabilize war-torn Iraq and Syria, where local forces backed by the U.S.-led coalition are battling Islamic State militants. The secretary will also travel to Djibouti, home to the United States' only base in Africa. But American forces aren't the only military in town. U.S. competitor China is constructing its first overseas military base just a few kilometers away from U.S. troops, in a bid to increase Chinese influence in the Horn of Africa.
China has a heavy presence. It's not traditional Western soft power where it's a humanitarian mission, because China's got a clear interest in the resources that are there.
While many of the people in the region are poor, the lands and coastal floors are rich with petroleum, gold, and natural gas. Experts say the Chinese have shown an interest in developing some of the poorest areas in the region, where locals are battling a destructive drought.
Well, for more insight on the Defense Secretary's trip to the Middle East and the Horn of Africa, let's go to VOA Pentagon Correspondent Calabab, who joins us live via Skype from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Good evening, Kala.
Hi, Vincent. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, you're welcome. Now, what does the Defense Secretary Mattis hope to gain from this trip?
Well, he is using this trip as a listening trip, is what he told reporters earlier today. He knows the players. He was the head of Central Command when he was in the military. He knows these regional allies. He wants to see what more do they need and what more can the U.S. get from them to help secure the region as a whole.
And why did he add a stop in the Horn of Africa on this trip?
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you think of it initially. Why would you add a stop on the Horn of Africa? But this particular stop in Djibouti is critical for all different parts of the globe. The base in Djibouti is important to U.S. Central Command because it is just right across the way from Yemen. It is right there next to that strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That strait sees a ton of traffic that goes through a very significant, probably one of the most significant places for trade in the globe. And so he wants to go there to see that base, to see how it is being used for Central Command and also for Special Operations Command, including special operations that go on in Somalia. And of course, it's important to Africa Command and also European Command. So he wanted to be there and include that in his stop as he's listening to see what more needs to be done strategically in the region to secure the area.
Now, you mentioned in your piece that the Chinese are also building a base not too far away from the U.S. military base in Djibouti. Is this of any concern to the U.S.?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. General Thomas Waldhauser, who is the head of U.S. Africa Command, has said that this is the first time that any peer competitor to the United States has a base this close. And so he said that there will be some security operational concerns that he is going to have to deal with as commander. However, if you talk to some experts like Rudy de Leon, who was in the report that I had, he said, don't overblow this. The U.S. is one of the best in the world when it comes to securing areas. They can secure their own base. It doesn't matter how close the Chinese are.
Well. We'll see how things play out. Carla, as always, we thank you for your reporting. We'll try to catch up with you in your next stop. Thank you. That's VOA's Pentagon Correspondent Carla Babb reporting live via Skype from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence is warning that all options are on the table for dealing with North Korea. Pence issued the warning Tuesday after arriving in Tokyo for talks with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and other officials. He assured the Japanese leader the United States would stand by its Asian ally during what he called challenging times.
As I made clear on behalf of the President in my recent visit to South Korea, the era of strategic patience is over. While all options are on the table, President Trump is determined to work closely with Japan, with South Korea, with all our allies in the region, and with China to achieve a peaceable resolution and the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Well, Prime Minister Abe welcomed the Trump administration's all-options approach towards the outcast communist regime.
Of course, we should seek a peaceful settlement of the issue, although I think a dialogue for the sake of dialogue is meaningless. It is necessary for us to exercise pressure against North Korea to engage in serious dialogue.
Well, Pence's visit to Northeast Asia comes at a time of heightened tensions over North Korea's defiant efforts to ultimately develop a nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. While a North Korean diplomat at the United Nations said Monday his country would respond with the toughest measures, including ballistic and nuclear missiles, if it is attacked by the United States. Earlier, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence told reporters in South Korea that the era of strategic patience is over after North Korea on Sunday fired another missile in violation of international law. VOA's Laditza Hoke has more.
North Korea has ignored international warnings and circumvented sanctions imposed to deter its nuclear arms ambitions. U.S. President Donald Trump has said North Korea must not be allowed to develop a nuclear bomb. His Vice President Mike Pence delivered a warning to Pyongyang during a visit to South Korea.
The world witnessed the strength and resolve of our new president in actions taken in Syria and Afghanistan. North Korea would do well not to test his resolve.
Trump urged North Korea's neighbor and major ally China to use its influence with Pyongyang to halt its nuclear arms program. Pence said if China fails to do so, the United States will do whatever is necessary to stop it. North Korea's deputy ambassador to the United Nations gave a defiant response.
If the United States dared opt for the military actions, the crying out for preemptive attack and the removal of the headquarters, the DPRK is ready to react to any mode of war desired by the American.
The North Korean diplomat also said his country is getting ready for another nuclear test. Trump has not revealed his plans regarding the communist state.
The president's made that drawing red lines hasn't really worked in the past. He holds his cards close to the vest, and I think you're not going to see him telegraphing how he's going to respond to any military or other situation going forward.
A White House spokesman said the United States will first try to resolve the North Korean problem peacefully with China's help.
There's an agreement, I think, by everyone so far that a nuclear-capable North Korea is not in anybody's best interest, and I think we're going to continue to work with the Chinese, in particular, on this case.
Trump's message to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Monday was "got to behave." Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, nearly 9,000, mostly African migrants, were rescued in the Mediterranean this past weekend after being put by smugglers in Libya onto unseaworthy boats bound for Italy. That's according to the United Nations aid agencies. More than 35 vessels, including 12 merchant ships, were involved in rescuing dozens of vessels. Now, the International Organization for Migration said on Tuesday the migrants, many from Nigeria and Senegal, with some from Bangladesh, are among an estimated 20,000 held by criminal gangs in irregular detention centers in Libya. IOM reported earlier this month that growing numbers of African migrants passing through Libya are traded in what they call slave markets before being held for ransom, forced labor or sexual exploitation. At least 900 migrants have died or have gone missing while attempting to reach Europe by sea so far this year. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is fast closing in on his first 100 days in office, and his public approval rating continues to hover around 40%, still a low mark for a new president. Trump's rating on foreign policy has improved slightly in the wake of recent U.S. military strikes in Syria and Afghanistan, but the president's domestic agenda seems stuck in neutral. Here's VOA's national correspondent Jim Malone.
After a rough few months on the domestic front, President Trump has increasingly turned his attention to foreign policy concerns, including North Korea's missile program and the recent military strikes in Syria and Afghanistan.
Right now, the world is a mess, but I think by the time we finish, I think it's going to be a lot better place to live. And I can tell you that, speaking for myself, by the time I'm finished, it's going to be a lot better place to live in, because right now it's nasty.
The flexing of U.S. military might was welcomed by Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
An interesting message to a lot of our adversaries around the world and our allies around the world that this administration is going to be more assertive than the previous one.
But Trump's standing at home is more complicated. Protesters have been out in force to demand the president release his tax returns. There was a clash in California between anti-Trump and pro-Trump demonstrators. Trump's efforts on health care and other domestic priorities remain stalled, frozen by polarized politics, says Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer.
He'll have trouble constantly unless he moves to the middle. We're waiting for him to do it.
From the beginning of his presidency, Trump has struggled to broaden his base of support, says analyst Sarah Binder.
Starting with historically low approval ratings, right, and even those approval ratings remain reasonably high with Republicans, but even those numbers have come down a bit. So it's very hard going forward to build big coalitions in American politics from a very narrow base.
Trump's best hope for progress on domestic issues may be to enlist support from Democrats, even if it risks angering Republicans, says William Galston.
If the administration really wants to move in that direction, they ought to initiate discussions with Democrats on issues such as tax reform and infrastructure right away, in my judgment.
Less than 100 days into his presidency, Trump is now trying to balance the pressing needs of his domestic agenda amid the backdrop of an uncertain and ever-changing world. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
On to Europe now. Retired Pope Benedict XVI celebrated his 90th birthday on Monday with a mug of beer and a small gathering with family and friends. Benedict sat with guests on a sunny day outside his home on Vatican grounds, where he has lived since he resigned as pontiff in 2013. He was joined by his elder brother, as well as with other visitors from his native Bavaria in Germany. Pope Emeritus Benedict turned 90 on Sunday, but since his birthday coincided with Easter this year, he celebrated the occasion on Monday. His successor, Pope Francis, visited the former pontiff at his home to wish him a happy birthday. Benedict stepped down as Pope in 2013, citing increased frailty, becoming the first pontiff to resign in 600 years. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Coming up, transforming patient care through virtual reality. Stay with us.
recipes and notes. This is Living Better.
If an item appears with green, hit it, you win a point. And if an item appears in a red circle, then you mustn't touch the screen.
Professor Natalia Lawrence is demonstrating a smartphone app developed by Exeter and Cardiff University researchers to help people lose weight by instinctively shunning unhealthful foods. The food tea game is designed to teach the brain to reflexively choose better foods, and test subjects like Fiona Furness lost weight with it, eating as much as 220 fewer calories per day.
I think it's entirely subconscious. It's almost like I don't even look for those things or think about them or want them.
The researchers say the game reduces activation of the brain's motor cortex, curbing the reward value of certain foods. The Adult Food Tea app was released in January. A version just for children has also been devised. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Welcome back. Now, the virtual reality industry is still in its infancy, with 1 million headsets expected to be sold this year. But one company, Applied VR, says this cutting-edge technology could potentially offer patients a highly enjoyable experience from scary and painful experiences in healthcare. VOA's Paul Ndiho recently caught up with the man behind Applied VR.
I hope that...
You have probably never heard of Awate, the Cameroonian tech mogul who has made a name for himself in the Los Angeles area for building cutting-edge software and mobile applications that compete with some of the biggest names in the industry. Awate is known as the first African-born technopreneur to cash in big time. He recently sold one of his tech companies, Cinema Now, a digital rights management video-on-demand firm, to Ravi Entertainment Networks for a cool $720 million.
That platform that we built basically, I think, was what gave birth to a lot of the different platforms you have today, you know, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Hulu, or, you know, to an extent, you know, some of the things that are happening with iTunes. They all use DRM today, and the valuation of Cinema Now went from, you know, this interesting startup with a potential solution to a problem to a $720 million company in the space of 7 years.
Once again, Ate has created a buzz in Los Angeles for his innovative and cutting-edge technology called Applied VR, or virtual reality, which is revolutionizing the way people interact with technology. He says that Applied VR as a platform is intended to increase patient comfort and support providers in managing anxiety and pain in a clinical setting before, during, and after procedures.
Take as much time as you like. Then gaze at
It's a very relaxing scene.
First meditation.
And the birds chirping. As far as I'm concerned right now, I am on a beach.
Te explains how the technology is used to keep patients' mind occupied during painful procedures. He also says his company has conducted clinical research to demonstrate how their products may decrease a patient's anxiety, reduce pain, minimize the need for sedation, lessen the risk of drug complications, and shorten post-operative stays.
We're right now in 8 of the top 10 hospitals in America, and you know, we continue to grow every single day. We get a phone call from a health system that is interested in trying our products because there's so many benefits for this. In fact, there's a woman that gave birth using our technology and did not need an epidural. It was serious. It was published in The Guardian.
The tech executive has also developed several other internationally recognized web and mobile applications, including a global communications platform that allows people to communicate with each other through an interface the opposite of Facebook.
The way it works is you send the message out, and that message gets replicated at least 5 times, and it goes to 5 people you've never spoken to or met in before, and if they're interested in what your message is, they can reply and you guys can start a conversation. So
as the tech mogul expands his business enterprise, he says his eyes are set on other innovative and cutting-edge solutions, especially in the rapidly growing e-medical and healthcare field. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the booming halal market creates unexpected opportunities for entrepreneurs. We'll be right back.
My mother is dead because of this place.
We really need to pull all our capacities and resources together to stop this.
Good. Nice. Yeah.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Whether he's a hipster, conservative, or a sportsman, the Muslim male faces a challenge: how to look good and stay halal. A number of companies are now exploiting this niche in a seemingly ever-expanding halal beauty industry. Abraham Mirza created the London Beard Company because he couldn't find any halal products to take care of his beard. This means they are made without using animal or alcohol products, common ingredients in many mainstream beauty products. He says the ethos of the London Beard Company is to keep the product natural, halal, and ethical, so he also avoids using chemicals and preservatives. Well, next up, Reiki for dogs is now trending in Hollywood as a holistic hands-on form of healing for your pets. It began in Japan in the 1920s and comes from the Japanese words rei, meaning spirit, and ki, meaning energy. While many consider it as a pseudoscience, those who provide the treatment for pets say it helps with physical sickness and injuries and helps emotionally and behaviorally. The hand positions used for Reiki are similar to the ones used on a human, marching on both sides of the dog and working down from the shoulders along the energy points or chakras. A session at a high-end facility in Beverly Hills can cost as much as $195 for an hour. Well, and finally, as authorities the world over struggle to effectively tackle air pollution, in Italy, a smog tracker for citizens is promising to help draw up air quality maps. The device, which is called Monica, is a small box that can be easily placed on a motorcycle, a bike, or a baby stroller, recording air quality levels in real time as users move around town. Monica is synced with a smartphone app and works in tandem with it. It processes data collected along the way and creates air pollution maps, now providing an instant picture of air quality in different parts of a city. Monica's inventor hopes the device will allow citizens to take charge of their environment and their health. And that is what is trending today. Turning on to sports now, Geoffrey Kirui and Enna Kiplagat produced a Kenyan sweep at the Boston Marathon, winning the men's and women's races on Monday. Kirui finished in 2 hours, 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Kiplagat, a 38-year-old mother of two, won the women's race in 2 hours, 21 minutes and 52 seconds. VOA's reporter Harrison Kamau covered the race in Boston. Harrison joins us now to tell us more about it. So first, these are Kenyans, you're a Kenyan. How did you feel just watching this, not as a reporter, but as a Kenyan?
No, Makori, the feeling was great. I just came back from where the action was happening, and I can tell you the feeling was it was great. And things were looking up, and to begin with, people were quite apprehensive, and especially the Kenyans, that this time they would make it.
Because the last 2 years they have not participated. The first
luck was not on their side at all. And remember, last year they were nowhere in the first five, best runners. But this time things were great, and something that happened is that the day before I had a chance to speak with some of them, and fortunately I got to speak to Edna.
Edna, the lady.
Yes, and I remember asking her, Edna, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? And she was like, well, this time I think Kenyan's going to do it, and personally I feel like I'm going to pull it through. And I said, I don't know, I had the conviction too that really Edna could have done it.
Now, generally, listening to people around the vibe, did other people really think Kenyans will make it this time, or was that also a great surprise they pulled on everybody?
No, Makori, I think there's this misconceived notion going on. Remember, Kenyans have been victims of doping and stuff, and they've been saying, people were saying that this time I think Kenyans feel demoralized, and this was a general feeling, even across the board when pertaining to the marathoners. But again, they felt that time had come for Kenyans to redeem themselves, and they did exactly that.
And Kirui particularly stood out because first time running the Boston Marathon, right?
Exactly. Same case with Edna.
Even Edna, which proves one thing, that Kenya has a pool of runners that it seems like every year there is a fresh pool of them.
It's their thing, because there's one guy that I spoke to, and he told me, you know what, he was, I think, American, and he told me, you know what, I think this thing is Kenyan. And now I agree that all the long races, be they marathon, cross-country, I think I give it to Kenyans.
Because, so many of these runners have said that they've been running from when they were children.
Exactly.
Without realizing that they were preparing for marathons or the Olympics, right?
Sure.
Because of where
inadvertently, they didn't actually intend to be runners professionally, but then they ended up being runners.
Yeah, because of the terrain, especially where the Kirui and Kiplagat come from.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot for sharing this with us, and it was good that you were there. I wish I was there too. I enjoy watching the races.
It's my pleasure, Corey.
Well, that's Harrison Kamau, is a VOA Swahili reporter. Now, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When something loses its original shape or form, it does not look very natural or comfortable.
Bent out of shape.
Hey, did you tell Greg about my dinner party?
Yeah, I did. I thought he was invited.
Well, now he's all bent out of shape because I didn't invite him.
I'm sorry.